This is a question about the films, or a comment about the films. I thought the two short films were great, were very useful, very strong, and they raise a lot of awareness about very important issues, and thank you very much for presenting them. But as far as I was concerned, the third film, I'm struggling to see in what sense it was a feminist film, to be honest. As speaking as a second wave, old school feminist filmmaker, to me that wasn't a very feminist film. I just saw a woman who was living her life through men, who wasn't actually taking responsibility for her own future or for her own life, who was seeing other women as like her competitors or her enemies or whatever, or people beneath her, and not, whereas the other two films were about how we can do things positively and how, seeking to build things together and be in solidarity with other women and be an autonomous person. Although, I've got a lot of support for the Eritrean women in that situation, but what was that film about, really? And also, it was all happening in Israel. There's a lot of issues that weren't even raised about that, and I just wonder what comments other people have got. Am I the only person that thinks this? Thank you.
No, you're not. I said to my partner, what was that? Actually, I don't know I couldn't really take anything useful from it, and it just raised some interesting points and there was no kind of gendered positioning on it. I think, what it kind of alluded to, and we hear all the time, there was recently an article about homeless women now are faced with living on the streets or giving sex to men for a roof over their heads. And I think that's a really common thing, and I felt that was sort of under it somewhere, but it wasn't made explicit. So I was really disappointed in that film.
I'm gonna say a couple of words in the film's defence. I don't think it's an unproblematic film. I think that there are issues such as the ones that have been raised, but I think we're viewing it through the eyes of people who are already, ready to listen to this cause. We're viewing it through the eyes of people who are quite knowledgeable about these issues. And what I thought that film did quite cleverly was to draw the viewer into this woman's life and show step by step how she wound up in the situation she was in a way that I don't think, I'm sure, some incredibly fascist, horrible person could correct me on this, but I don't think anyone could really argue that she had done anything to deserve to wind up where she was, that she'd done anything wrong at any step. She was doing what she could with what was available to her. She pursued kind of the proper channels, she tried to do everything she could. And I think that what it was trying to do, and I think there were problematic things in that it made such a big deal of, for example, her being traditionally beautiful. But ultimately, I think that what it does is it creates a character that is going to be sympathetic to almost anyone. And I think that, for us, maybe that's not necessary, but there are some people who might see that film who before that wouldn't have considered the possibility that someone could have wound up in those circumstances completely without having done anything wrong. They would just assume that they must have done something to deserve it, and that's horrible. But if that film could convince them otherwise, then that would be a good thing. So that's my words in the defence of that film.
Yeah, I think on a similar note, I would add that, one of the things that we tried to do with Margaret's story was, although it is based on one specific woman's story, we tried to make it very much a universal story. So in the beginning, where you see the shots of her children in the kitchen and her at work and her coming home from work and cooking dinner, you know, what we really wanted to get across was this is a normal woman with a good life. You know, she talks about her business, she talks about her family, her mum, the house, living in a good place. She didn't want to leave any of that behind. Even once she's rescued, she's talking about going back to the house, going back for the children, going back to the restaurant. And the man who's rescued her says there's nothing left. So I think what I got from it was that similar sense of just having the rug yanked out from under your feet and having to completely start from scratch, you know, and being just picked up and dropped somewhere completely alien and having to like figure everything out, you know. Did you have anything you wanted to say?
I'd just like to say that everyone's normal. I think the woman